Welcome in. Block Party is here. This is Block Party Preview. I'm your host, Mike Wahle. Thanks for watching, guys. If you're enjoying, hit that subscribe button on our YouTube channel, Process to Perform. You can check us out on Andy Herman's Pack a Day podcast as well. Hit me up, Mike Wahle68 on Twitter, Process to Perform on Instagram. Give us a rating. Do all that stuff you like to do. Thanks again for all our listeners who continue to put out the questions for our listener segment. I really appreciate it. Listen, this is I think this is only the third or fourth time the Bears and the Packers have played in the postseason. Which is it's absolutely crazy. You think about the history of this rivalry, and it's starting to feel that way again. Certainly, the split in the regular season over the last month here, games, and obviously the Bears coming back with Ben Johnson and winning the NFC North for the first time in a long time. This is a fun football game. You would think, watching both teams, in particular the last month, this is going to be a high-scoring affair. Obviously, the week 18 games, you can get a good preview from the Bears. We're going to show that the Bears versus the Lions, they lost 16-19, but played their starters. The Packers, not so much. That Vikings game was kind of a throwaway. Not a lot we can take from it. We just hope that everybody's healthy, and then you can kind of project on based on what they did over the last couple of weeks. So I want to get into the tape, but really quickly, Bears defensively, they have gotten better over the course of the season. They're still really, really good in the takeaway category. They're down to 5.0 yards per carry, good for 29th in the league. That's a bad number. They give up over 24 points a game. I think that's good for 23rd in the league. They're not top 10 in anything defensively. They just happen to turn the ball or get turnovers a lot. They gave up 8 explosives in the passing game last week versus the Lions. They gave up 122 on the ground. So, it's one of those games where they're the second seed. In my world, they have a bye. In my world, the Packers aren't even in it because they're the 7th seed. But this goes from, God, you're playing the second seed in the NFC to, of all the teams in the NFC, I feel the best about the Packers going in and beating the Bears on their home turf, maybe than I would, certainly the Seahawks, the Eagles, and hopefully we get to that point. But God, every time I watch this defense, you go, there's no way we're not going to move the football and score points here. And I think, conversely, you look at it, and if you're looking at it from the Bears, particularly their offensive staff, you're probably looking at it and going like, all right, well, the Bears offense averages almost 5 yards a carry. They're number 3 in the entire football league. They score 26 points a game. They're a really, really good offensive football team, good scheme, really good players, really good up front. Here's the thing. As good as they are with double teams, as good as they are with both of their backs, as good as they are at the tight end in their tight end room, as good as they are running the football, over the course of the last month at least, they don't like to run the football. They pass more on first down than anybody in the league, and I think a lot of that's attributed to people who are worried about stopping the run, and so therefore you're going to be in base personnel. You got some matchups outside that you like. You got a play caller who's a scheme wizard, and he's going to put people in positions to make big plays. But the reality is, you can run the ball for 5 yards a clip, and you actively choose not to. I think over the course of a game, they refuse to run the football, 50% of the time. They only run the football 45% of the time, and they're 31st in the league in completion percentage. So it's like, what does that tell you? Well, that tells you that they must be going for a lot of shot plays. I do think, to my eyes, Caleb Williams has gotten really good over the last month and a half of making tight window throws. I talked about it on Andy Herman's podcast earlier this week. I think he's gotten really good at that. Obviously, the off-schedule stuff that he's good at eluding, he's elusive in the pocket. He's dangerous out of the pocket. He can run as well as any quarterback, maybe including, but maybe not including Lamar Jackson. He's really, really special with his feet outside the pocket. He's got a rocket arm. He's making better decisions. But as you saw in the Lions game, wide open player on the under, and he throws into triple coverage, gets picked off in the end zone. So I think there's opportunities to take the football away from him. This game is going to come down. I think this game is going to be a massive, massive turnover game. The reality is, and we'll show it on tape. I think I speak for a lot of people when you go, I hope Ben Johnson decides to continue to not run the football, because I think as long as you look at the first 2 Packers matchups, you think, if they run the football, they win those things going away, and it's not nearly as close as it was, because that is our biggest weakness on defense is at the defensive tackle position. You can see the double teams, how effective they are and how effective they were against the Packers the last 2 times they played. And for whatever reason, they go away from it. They've gone away from it, particularly the last 4 to 6 weeks of the year. And I mean, listen, Ben's a genius, but I said it on Andy's show. If they don't make it far in the playoffs, and he's got a 31%, 31st best completion percentage, and he's not running the ball over 50% or 50% of the time in these close games, it's like stuff sledding. So, anyways, I'm going to show you a preview of their offense and defense versus the Lions. There's lots to take away from here. I think we get some. I hopefully pulled out some good clips. There's a lot of ways to attack their defense. I spent more time in their defense because offensively, honestly, there just wasn't a lot of clips that you want to watch. But check this out, and then we'll get back and do a little listener questions and summary. So checking out these Bears, they start and play a lot of 12-13 personnel. They love going under center play action. I really like their tight end room. Obviously, Colston Loveland they brought in, first-round draft pick, Cole Kmet, talent at the wide receiver position. The quarterback's been playing a lot better recently. Caleb Williams is, he can do it with his feet. He's got a rocket arm. He's been making a lot more tight window throws. Something that's really jumped out on tape for me, at least. And they've got a great running game. We talked about it before. They just don't run the football, and particularly on first down. They are the team with the highest passing percentage on first down. They run the ball only 45% of the time, even though they average about 5 yards a carry. 2 great running backs. The last couple of games, they just haven't run the football for over 100 yards, and I have to imagine Ben Johnson's trying to get back into that. Having said all that, you watch this 16-19 loss to the Lions, and one of the things that kind of stood out was, yes, they can still run the ball well, but there are ways, particularly with guys at the line of scrimmage, using just different stunt moves to get around this backside of this tackle or the center, for example. You can have some success and win early. It's not easy. They're a very good football team, but obviously, anytime you have to make somebody cut in the backfield, you feel really good about it. This is something the Packers are going to have to employ because I think the matchup that they have to love is their interior offensive line. So when you look here, they really got this interior offensive line is really good. Obviously, you got a Pro Bowler here. Brought in both these. I think all 3 of these guys are free agents. I think the center came from Atlanta. I'm sure at one point, I think 73 was maybe the Rams. I can't recall. But we got a backup playing left tackle. Obviously, their first-round draft pick from a couple years ago at the right tackle position. They'll go multiple personnel packages during the game. They'll use DJ Moore as a decoy, coming backside, coming split flow action, all this different stuff. But really, they just have some bread and butter runs that they like to dress up. They do a really good job with it. Now, right here, they're going to slip this up to the backer because they're going to get double stunts here. This kind of gets all jumbled up. And really, they're just going to win this 1v1 against a really good center. But, the Packers, just knowing that this is a matchup that the Bears have to love, talking about their interior versus our interior defensive tackles, you're going to have to win. And part of that's going to be just moving her off the line of scrimmage. So we got a 3rd and 1 look here. They go motion across with Loveland, who's just turned into a really good rookie. Holds up enough at the edge, but just watch the movement that they're getting here and what that does to Jack Campbell. Get a decent block outside here. But these plays with this running back backfield, you're forcing the safety to make these what are, truthfully really difficult tackles. Any one of these could be a home run. Have to just be well aware, but Center does a good job of hooking that nose tackle. But I'll show this from the end zone. Anytime you're getting that kind of movement off the line of scrimmage, and this is something the Packers just have to be well aware of, you watch here. Anytime you get this kind of movement, and you just get a little bit of a hook here, this backside really stops mattering, and you can just focus in on getting this great double. They're going to motion across. All this guy has to do is seal off. I know I say all, but it's a difficult block for our tight end room. They do a good job at it. They do just enough here. And when you have speed, like all these NFL teams do, play goes for a quick 7. 3rd and 3. Motion Kmet over into a blocking position at a gun. And I'm showing this sack, but you can kind of see what they're trying to get to against the too deep look. They're trying to find that tight end in the open space here between the hang corner and the cover two safety. They have DJ Moore wide open inside. Difficult time carrying him. And then obviously we back this up a little bit. And they're going to bang out the tight end position. Release here, and then they always have that kind of lead blocker and swing pass as an option. Now, the reason I show this play, though, and this is what, this is the playoffs, man. Every snap counts. And what you want to start looking at is, as a defensive player, if you're in the defensive room, how they're getting ready. You watch Aiden Hutchinson here, and, you remember the days when we could line up Micah Parsons and just get a sack or a pressure. It's been really difficult for the Packers recently, but when we watch the matchup here and just kind of, what are we thinking? How are we going to try to defeat this guy? He kicks back against a really good pass rusher, but he gets right here, puts his helmet down, just bad body position. And so if you're Hutchinson, you're going to do a push-pull with an arm over or a rip. And the other thing that you want to show on this play, as I kind of go through it a little bit, you have to have a pass rush plan against Caleb Williams. And one of the pass rush plans that can be really effective is just a 3 technique to his right side that is compressing the pocket, extended, and not necessarily taking an edge, so that when he tries to release, we have an answer. Now, Hutchinson gets up and over the top, and he's going to come back underneath here because he wins actually before the stick point of the quarterback. So the quarterback's all the way plant foot here, and he's won, probably 2 yards before. So that all of a sudden is what we just call a real short edge. But in part, because they're doing a good job of extending and holding right here and just collapsing this pocket back, as opposed to taking let's say an A-gap exit, he has nowhere to go. And this is something you have to think about as a pass rush plan when you're putting together your defense. Almost lost Tony there. So they're going to run the jet sweep here using Burden, who's second-round draft pick. He has really showed up the last couple of weeks. Elusive player, great athlete, kind of a different mover. And you just look at it from a defensive perspective, you've got all of these guys selling run. You're back in your 12 personnel. You're going to get your good double here. We're just going to, run everybody this direction. We're going to book him. And so with this jet motion, most defenses are just going to keep one guy back, and they're going to play everybody on this side as part of this play side run game. So it's not really a question of, schematically or from a football IQ standpoint, you know who you have. But when you've got athletes like Burden, they turn nothing into something. And this is kind of, everybody's got players like this, but these are these little plays that extend drives. So it's not just about being kind of schematically sound. It's like once you get there, don't go high side and let him cut underneath. Show this from the end zone real quick. You can see they just motion over with the jet action, but everything's suggesting, to this player in particular, looking all the way back here, we see the fill, but everybody's going this way. They've got bodies. This is going to happen too fast for, 99% of the defensive ends in the league. Ball's gone, and then you got to make that play. And this, Ben Johnson and this offensive, running game, they've got so many different ways to attack you. They've got so many weapons. It's much like Matt LaFleur. You think about last year using Jaden Reed in the run game a lot, especially on the jets, jet sweeps and then the swing passes. Like, these are easy ways to get what I think are kind of gimme yards. So we go 2nd and 4. They're back into 13 personnel. Another under center look. And, this is the pick. And this is something where they're throwing the ball a lot. Sometimes you wonder why, because they're so successful in the run game. But the reality is, he's going to throw into triple coverage. And they've got a player wide ass open here. You see the space between 2nd and 3rd level in the secondary, and Ben Johnson's getting exactly what he asked for, exactly what he dialed up. And they probably got a touchdown if they just throw it to the underneath receiver. These concepts are really cool. Obviously, they block out and they insert block with DJ Moore here, and just allows him to attack the seam. This is the play that they want. They've got all the action. You see all the backers are going here. They've got players back here to watch for anything coming back over. But because of Caleb Williams' ability to get on the move, they just almost forget that they've got a crosser. Linebacker makes the play to go to the quarterback because they've got two leads here, even though this guy's going to leak out late. And so, if you're it puts you in a real bind. And these are the plays that you just kind of hope, if you're a Packer, that Caleb Williams gives up a little bit. 2nd and 2 play here. Motion from a bunch over to a 2-by-2. Back to 11 personnel. And this is a traditional cover 4 beater. When you look at the cover 4 over here, that means they're playing quarter and quarter. And generally speaking, you can see the leverage issue that this outside corner has, because they're going to just run like a skinny post and an under. And the job of this defender is to drive on that under. Now, sometimes you can mix this up with different coverage, different coverage calls, go tan or something, or post, where they try to hit this on the backside so they can stay high. But the reality is this corner has to be over the top of this player. He can't have this inside leverage. The minute this guy drives, that's an easy throw and catch for the quarterback. Do a good job on the other side. All these play callers are just so smart in the way they think about occupying every player. This guy's got eyes on. He comes inside immediately, sinks him down. I mean, there's just so much space to throw back here. Got an accurate quarterback with a rocket arm. Put it on your speed player. This is the guy who had the great celebration last week against the Packers 2 weeks ago. He's got a lot in his bag there. Okay, we got a 2nd and 2. Empty. And, Caleb can just make these. I don't know how tight. This is not necessarily a tight window, but this is a really quick throw. As soon as that linebacker breaks, he throws right behind him to the open space. You see how deep these safeties are. This gives you, a chance to catch in stride and run after the catch. And I think he's just gotten, for me in the last 4 weeks, if you say what's the difference with the Bears, I just think he's getting better and better at these throws. You see 84's just become a real weapon for him, obviously. They're playing kind of a 2 again, talking about Detroit, trying to carry with that linebacker. Got the safety deep here, deep safety here, so the space is always going to be open. Really just you're always trying to put a player in conflict, and who that player is going to be, before the snap, really, only the quarterback knows. Okay, we got a 1st and 10 play, another under center. You just see they really love getting their tight ends involved. They love being into 12 and 13 personnel. See a little movement down here from Detroit. A lot of teams like to get a quick slant to that play side, try to force everybody down and free up their linebacker, free up that safety coming down. You see the outside leverage here, with the corners playing outside in. Obviously, with the guy on the line of scrimmage, this is going to be a run action. They're just going to run a quick slant. This could have been a pick. These are the kind of plays you really got to capitalize on. You see the Detroit Lions could have had one here, right there. Close play, but these are the kind of plays you hope you get a free one. But at the same time, if you're going to play off, if you're going to play outside leverage, if you're going to play with your outside backer at the line of scrimmage, you put 6 guys up at the line of scrimmage, you're asking for trouble if you're going to play that far off, my opinion. Okay, this is a 1st and 10 look. I got a little excited with the fast forward button, but they motioned DJ Moore here, and they've done this a lot. And now they're going to bring him back out into the flat. They're going to release the tackle inside. This play doesn't work, but they're just going to run inside zone to the left, and they're really going to put this guy back in conflict. So he has to motion back in as DJ Moore comes in, And really, they're setting this play up for a later opportunity. They let this play go. The defensive end does a good job of crashing, but you can see this guy's in a real problem. Now, of course, with 58 being downfield, they're going to have a problem throwing the football, but you see, from a leverage standpoint, you got a safety or a backer on DJ Moore. He catches his ball in stride. They've got a lead blocker, and you've got a big play here. So it's not only what they're doing in the run game. This play doesn't end up working from a run standpoint, but you see the conflict. They're putting this backside backer in by bringing him across the football, which is important, then back out to the flat. They're going to have that lead blocker. This guy's got to make a play. I don't know if he has an option here. They're kind of getting everything they want. See, the backside guard doesn't get his head across here. Has to push this so the hole's not exactly as big as you want. Ideally, if he gets his head across, you can actually move this player one more half step over, and now that lane is going to be where it wants. And because he's jetting out, really 58 can go up to the safety, and these are home run opportunities because you're going to get the center up on Jack Campbell and be able to block him inside out. So it's like they're just so close right here to being successful, and you just see that. You can see it from here. It's, the leverage that DJ Moore is going to have on really anybody, particularly in a linebacker, though. If he wants to give this, you see he automatically takes a peek, and he's saving that one for later. Good play by the defensive end. Okay, for my money, I think this game is a little bit more interesting on the defensive side. We're going to start here. If I can move this down a little bit. Yeah, there we go. Start here on a 3rd and 9. And the thing that kind of stood out for me watching this tape was really 94, who I think has turned in, the last couple weeks has really turned into a good pass rusher. Now they're going to run a little mesh ET look and bounce off and end up getting a sack here. You see that we're playing man coverage. All right, we're manned up all over the board. Someone's going to have to account for, obviously, Jahmyr Gibbs here. Deep safeties, but you just see the space that the Bears are willing to give up in these situations. End up getting the sack. Everyone's covered. I think they do a good job overall with some of the stuff, but like we've said, they're bottom third in points per game. They're not top 10 in any category except for turnovers, but they have gotten a lot better, I think, at the pass rush. Now, this is the starters for the offensive line for the Lions, not except for Penei Sewell. And you just watch what he does to 6'8" here. It's kind of the double swipe rip. And this is what I mean by a mesh stunt. Mesh stunt means he's not trying to actually pick the guard. He's actually trying to win in that B gap. So the tackle has to stick here, and he doesn't do a good job of pressing this off. Even though they're sliding the center, though, this guard's in conflict, and 99 just basically has a free walk to the quarterback. Now you have to sit here and go, do you feel good about, old 6'3" on 94? I think for the last 2 games, the answer is probably yes. This guy is playing better. We've certainly been part of that. We'll get Zach Tom back on the other side, so I don't think you need to help over there. But this play has been effective for them, and it was effective multiple times this game and also games prior. Okay, we got a 1st and 10 look. Shifting over back to under center, they go bunch. Little play action pass. You see Montez Sweat gets home here, as does Grady Jarrett. Go back. You really, the interesting matchup for me is Johnson, number 1, against whoever they want to put up against. I think he's a really good football player. But they do a good job here for the most part. That deep out is something that you like up top with Jordan Love. He loves throwing that ball. He's really good at it. I'm going to go to the end zone copy here to show you the sack, and 2 things kind of stand out. Now, obviously, Zach Tom being back is a big deal. You're going to see the long arm here from 98. Boom, right there. Gets it stuck. This gets your feet stopped more often than not, especially against a backup. Now you can just attack that outside arm, rip up and get through. I want to go back, though, and show you what Grady Jarrett does here on really what looks like a loop stunt out. He jumps out and then just does a great, club with a chop and a rip and gets across this guy. It's almost like a jump chop outside. wins clean against their guard. And we know their guards have struggled in Detroit this last season here. We saw it from game one. But that's a hell of a good move. Grady Jarrett has been a fantastic football player in this league. He's still got some juice to him. You know, they brought him in for a veteran presence. I'm sure he's a great leader and mentor in the locker room, but this is also a guy that, you know, this is a hell of a difficult football play. Most people aren't going to get home on this play. Okay, we got a 1st and 10 down in the red zone. Here's Booker again, 94. And the Bears ran some cover 2 over here, and you know a lot of teams like to run cover 2 down in the red zone. So we're going to open up, and they're just going to try to get that space in between the safety and the corner. They're going to sit down here to get that linebacker to stick. And really, when you're down in the red zone, things happen fast. You often don't have time to get back across the field. You know, depending on your quarterback and your play caller, they don't really even want you to get to the other side of the field. I know Tom Brady's famous for saying if you start on the right, you're going to stay on the right. But you watch Austin Booker here, kind of creating some more pressure. 99's back in again, and I don't know if this is a true kind of mesh down. I think he just wins underneath. Looks like he's going to take the B gap one way or the other, and ends up kind of falling into a play here as far as pressuring the quarterback. But this is another really good kind of example of this guy's getting better at his moves. Does a good job of getting horizontal here, back to vertical. That double swipe arm over, chops that outside arm. He's free. Again, we know that 73 was a real struggle bus. I think Aaron Banks is playing at a much better level than he is, but you can't deny that these guys are getting better at rushing the passer. Let's go 1st and 10. We've got their base personnel really looking at a 5-down line. That linebacker walked up on the tight end to the upside of the field. Now, this play doesn't go, but I love this play. They're going to run 2 shallow crosses, and because they're under center and this guy's aligned under the center, this guy has that much further to go. Now what all's going to happen is they're going to swing. They're going to take the tackle. They're going to run him off. They're going to run those 2 unders, and this tackle's just waiting to dial up the middle linebacker, and they are gone. I mean, this is a massive, massive play if this goes. See, they just got leverage and numbers. This is going to be a really good play for them. Now, the difference here for me, and this is what's interesting about different play calling and styles, is if you put Goff in shotgun here, let's do that again. If you put Goff in shotgun here and then Gibbs is over to this side, this little bit, because they're going to align nose to nose, this little bit is going to make this play kind of unreachable for the tackle. So in other words, the tackle's not going to be able to get out here before the linebacker does if he's got another 2-3 yards over to his left, right? But because they line this guy up under center and they just run the big swing, even though you got to throw over Sweat, which is kind of the problem of the play, if they can get over that player on what turns out to be a free rush, you got something big here. Again, not a play that works, but I kind of watch these plays and go, it's a pretty good play design. That's something that Matt LaFleur can certainly look at and feel good about. Okay, we got a 1st and 10. Okay, so the Bears are going to show this safety late because they've got a tight end and then a slot receiver. You can see the outside leverage here. So right away, you're feeling really good about him winning. And then coming down here, they're going to run a little out and then a little follow here on another shallow cross. But they run away from leverage. Maybe there's a little bit of hesitation with that safety coming down in the nickel slot as far as are they in each other's way. If he doesn't hit the first guy, the second guy's definitely open as well. These are plays you really love, I think, if you're Matt LaFleur. And we talk about it. Anytime you're bringing guys down at the snap, and then you've got these different kinds of releases where the outside guy's going first, and maybe he waits a minute, hesitates, and goes, as the trailer. You can always count on one of those guys maybe getting a little bit off their spot, which happens to the safety here. So they make the good throw to the first shallow, but really the trail you see is wide ass open as well. We got a 1st and 10 look, and this is kind of what I was talking about earlier is, they're going to align with that back offset. Now, we don't know right off the bat here if they're going, it looks like they're going maybe cover 2 or man down here. It looks like cover 2. But we'll see this up top as this play draws out. These are the opportunities, I think, in the passing game that you really have to like. Anytime you go fast 4, so you got 1, 2, 3, you got your fast 4 out to the slot. It's fast 4 not just because it's Jahmyr Gibbs, it is actually a fast 4, but that is going to activate this player now. You got 1, 2, 3, and it activates this player. Now somebody's got to get over there, whether it's that inside slot, whether they're not running in the middle, or it's that linebacker. But you can see here, he's communicating like, someone's got to go, someone's got to go. They're all late on it. He stays with the in cut. It's probably these two passing it off. Gibbs is wide open. Anytime you put 4 to the side, I think it really screws with that linebacker communication, something the Packers like doing, something that they do well. See Booker again here with this little stutter stab. And you really have to watch the profile of your tackle over here. When a guy's playing high level, I think this guy's been playing high level the last 4 games. Comes off the ball on his 3rd, gives you a little hesitation and a stab. You see 68 Decker, arms out wide, just showing all chest. This is, for me, this is a terrible profile. Giving up that chest. He keeps backing up. And he's kind of inviting the bull, but then he just gets knocked off the spot completely. Get a hit on the quarterback. Got a 2nd and 10 back in the red zone. They run a little Texas route here. They go fast motion. Fast motion's great from an offensive play caller standpoint because fast motion, if they're playing man, it's obvious. Okay, but a lot of times if you're doing like some sort of rock and roll with your safeties or switching up, a lot of times with fast motion, they'll change the call and they won't motion and they won't chase the guy over unless it's actual man coverage. So they kind of know what they're getting right now. And that's not true with every defense. That's not true with every team. But oftentimes when this guy sprints away, instead of trying to chase in like a match zone, they'll just switch responsibilities. But here they stay with it, so they kind of know they're in man, and they're going to run, occupy the safety. They're going to bring him out, take it to the corner, and then they're just going to run this little Texas route. Dorsey Levens was fantastic at the Texas route. Amon was fantastic at the Texas route. Tony Fish. And they're just going to put their middle linebacker in a real bind. They end up bringing 49. Good job sifting here. But when you got speed at that running back position, you can see they get occupied in double coverage here with that play side safety. No one's home. Linebacker gets leverage because he's so worried. We'll go back right here. You're so worried about getting chopped and beat out to the sideline where you have no help. You end up turning your hips, and the minute he turns his hips, it's not fair. Jahmyr Gibbs is fast, but we got 2 guys in the backfield who can do the same thing. These feel like almost gimme plays. All you got to be able to do is pick up that sift player with the tackle. So I love this play for a couple of reasons. One, you see the doubles, and the Bears aren't just, you don't got absolute studs here. They get 2 good double teams. The conflict that puts it that back or trying to hit that backside A gap is fantastic. But watch the backside. I'll rewind this. And this is what you'd love to see. So they've got 2 for 2, and they block out and they fold in. And because Brisker is playing on the inside tight end with his hand in the ground, this little hesitation that he takes at the snap right there allows the receiver to get inside out and hold this off just enough that he can't really take care of his backside C gap. And all of a sudden, you've got a great bounce play where your corner or your safety has to make a tackle 10 yards downfield. Great job by that receiver, 18, of blocking. But this is why you love switching things up. It's not always hey, let's just run this double team here. Sometimes, and we talk about this with the Packers all the time, sometimes let's try to cut the defense and get the backside guy around. He has better leverage. He has momentum. You see, you got fast flow action from the linebackers here. But really, great job on the backside. That really makes the play go. Watch it from here. They're comfortable putting Montez Sweat in an island with this tight end. He plays over the top. Talking about here. Plays over the top. Puts him in a bad spot. It's really all they're asking for. As long as he doesn't crash, you're in good shape. We get this cutoff. You see Edmonds is in a really bad spot. He's got to take backside A. Or play side A. Everyone's got a gap that they're responsible for. We talk about these double teams and how we'd love to see the Packers not try to take the guy on, but maybe turn it into a single block one way or the other so that you feel like you've got a much better chance of kind of defeating that block, even if it means that that guard gets to that backer. You've got a one-on-one now with the backside tackle. 3rd and 4 look here. They go 2-3 techniques, wide rush. They look like they're in man coverage across the board. Everyone's lined up nose to nose. They end up zoning this off. End up getting to like a cover 2 here. Again, out. He's pushing off, looking inside. Guys are getting back deep and getting wide. They're running all this action here. They got to pass this off. Initially, they look man, but they pass this off. We got to carry. Watching this guy come back underneath. Now we're watching for here. And you've got all this space to operate. They're just going to run up and a quick in. Nobody's home. Safety's got to respect the deep ball. And then you got your yards after catch because Jared Goff's kind of the quarterback like Jordan Love is. They can throw the ball in stride. Do a good job of occupying that backside safety with the seam route. And now you get another 10 yards of yards after catch, which is going to be huge in this football game. Okay, we got 1st and 10 under center. They motion over to 2x2. And this play was kind of wild for me. They've got numbers. They just don't get home. Talking about the Bears, they've got everybody up at the line of scrimmage. Obviously, we're going to have to bail at some point and get guys out. But they've got 2 guys coming off the edge. They've got a split flow look. He ends up taking the outside guy. He leaves Montez Sweat wide ass open. Okay? They end up running just a dig on the backside. They occupy everybody else here. And because they've got all this space now between 1st and 2nd levels, or I guess 1st and 3rd levels of the defense, this is something you see a lot. And really, as I say this, you got Brisker here. And he's going to bail, but he's going to bail and look to this side and totally miss the dig. You see the outside leverage here. I mean, everything is set up for success. These are the things we talked about on the show where, just the identification by Jordan Love and the group of understanding how you want to attack this defense based on the leverage they line up with and what you see immediately with your eyes afterwards, I think is going to be huge. Another run after catch. Obviously, Amon-Ra St. Brown is a special player.
Hey, friends, it's time to get our sleeper picks in for the very last Monday Night Football game of the year and what could potentially once more be Aaron Rodgers' last game in the NFL. If he continues on and they win this game, of course it will not be. He could always not retire and play again next year, but this could be his final game of the year. Let's get some fun picks in for this one. We get a free pick. CJ Stroud, more than 1.5 passing yard. Feel pretty good about that one. Kenneth Gainwell, more than 33.5 receiving yards. He had a bunch of receiving yards like we talked about last week. I think he's going to do it again. I expect this Texans defense to really limit the opportunities for the Steelers offense. I think there's going to be a ton of checkdowns, and Gainwell's been super involved as of late. So more than 33.5 receiving yards. Same thing with Jaylen Warren, more than 1.5 receptions. Again, ton of checkdowns for Pittsburgh in this game. Simple as that. CJ Stroud, more than 1/2 passing yard. Kenneth Gainwell, more than 33.5 receiving yards. Jaylen Warren, more than 1.5 receptions. The best part is you can choose your own adventure. Get your picks in. You can copy mine if you'd like, but get them in over at Sleeper. And the best part is that you can get a 100% match up to $100 by utilizing code PACKADAY. Again, a 100% match up to $100 by utilizing code PACKADAY. Terms and conditions apply. See Sleeper for details. They are available in over 25 states nationwide. So what are you waiting for? Get after it. It's the playoffs. Get your picks in with Sleeper.
So as you can see, look at my guy back here, by the way. My bud. Great story behind that, but maybe that's not for today. So this is a very winnable football game. Obviously, the Packers are on the road and still being favored by 1.5. This is really a toss-up game in the eyes of Vegas, but when you look at it, I think that's exactly what it should be. If we can find a way, whether it's through movement, adding into the box, we just be sure tackling, really being able to get off those double teams. I think the double teams, if I was going to come up with a key to the game on defense, for me, it would be how do we defeat their double teams, whether that's by just attacking a single man, whether that's, triggering your linebackers faster. How do we defeat those double teams and make it so those guys aren't playing the laps of Quay Walker, the laps of Edgerrin Cooper, obviously McDuffie, and then, when Evan Williams comes down to the box. Like, I think that is, if I'm the Chicago Bears, I'm looking at that going, I can do that, 10 out of 10 times. So I'm going to try to do it 10 out of 10 times until they prove we can stop it. So having said that, high scoring football game, I'd be shocked, even though with the weather and you're in Chicago in January, I would be shocked if this isn't, high 20s, low 30s, kind of scoring football game. And, it's going to be a fun one, guys. Let's check out some listener questions. Let's see it. First one I got from last week, and I just wanted to address it. Curious head to what you thoughts on Jacob Monk stayed at center. I thought Jacob Monk was an elite mover in the run game. Obviously, being a smaller player, being a leverage player, he's got great footwork. He plays with incredible leverage and good technique. I think his change of direction was elite. You see some issues in pass pro early on. Now, he does a great job of getting back. I think he's a great job of getting into position, but you just see some technical stuff that's going to have to get a little bit better because he is at a little bit of a disadvantage because of the size. Now, if you're a Scotty Wells, who's, 4-time state champion wrestler, national champion wrestler, whatever he was, and it's got a 550-pound bench, maybe that's not a problem. But I don't know that he's at that level of kind of, man strength athleticism. And because of that, you just really have to be cognizant of guys getting to your edge, being able to defeat an arm, and then what that ends up meaning. But I thought he was an elite mover at the center position. Really like the way that he could attack the second level, like the way that he could come off doubles. I like Sean Ryan too, though. I think they're different kinds of players. Sean's obviously got 20, 30 pounds on him, but he's one of those guys that for my money, I'm very interested to see what he looks like next year with another offseason under his belt. If you were the offensive coordinator Saturday night, what type of game plan would you create in order to win? This is from Isaiah. Thanks for the question. Well, what you see from the Bears is that they like to run a lot of different coverages. They're not afraid to bring pressure, particularly from the linebacker crew. And I think that Austin Booker has done a good job of creating pressure over the last couple of weeks, whether that's one-on-one matchups or winning on that kind of mesh ET that we saw. So do you feel like Rasheed Walker can block him one-on-one? I tend to think he can. I don't know how much time we have to bang out and chip out with our tight ends and running backs. Our running backs are probably going to be occupied with the linebackers. I would just kind of say this. I think at some point you do have to be able to run the football effectively. And by effectively, I mean you need to win that rep, which means for me, it's got to be over 4 yards of carry. Obviously, if you get to 5 yards of carry, you don't start running the football. I really like crossing routes against these guys because they like to run zone and man. They like to run some match stuff. You see a lot of success against a team like this getting into 12 personnel, 22 personnel. I think the issue is right now we just don't have – I just don't think of that as our matchup kind of go-to. And so if I'm looking at it and knowing that there's not another game to rest for, I want to see Christian Watson on the field as much as possible. I want to see Romeo Dobbs. I want to see Jaden Reed. I want to see those guys on the field as often as possible. So we're probably looking at a lot of 11. And we're probably looking at a lot of motion, because in motion, whether they're running man or whether they're trying to match up, the leverage on the outside or slot defenders becomes very, very obvious to Jordan Love. And as I showed on the tape, I do think that the real project, or the real game within the game here, is how fast Jordan can identify what the coverage is early on, because there are going to be matchups that he absolutely loves in this game, regardless if they play match zone or if they end up playing man. They play with high safeties when they play two shell. I don't think that their linebackers do a great job of carrying the seam in that case. So I just think there's a lot of opportunities in the passing game, particularly if you can end up moving the pocket a little bit and giving yourself those timing routes that take a little bit longer with the under center play action, the waggles, et cetera, et cetera. I would love, love, love to see a heavy dose of toss crack runs. I would love to see a heavy dose of gap scheme in addition to that, and build your play action off of that stuff. But I really am thinking that this is a game you put in Jordan Love's hands. I hate saying this, but we have, I'm going all over the place here, but as I talk myself through this, we have given this offensive line and this running back group opportunities to run the football. Now, maybe you don't like the system and the scheme, whatever. And they just have not had, they haven't had 100-yard runners. It hasn't been great. And I think when you're in the playoffs, you got to go like, Jordan Love, we signed the big contract. You're our best player. You're our offensive guy. You're our leader. I want to get the best offensive weapons on the field, and I want you to distribute the football. We're going to give you via our formations, personnel groupings, matchups, and motions. We're going to give you a window into what they're doing pre-snap. Make the right decision, make the throw. I don't think this is a protection issue game at all. I don't think this is a communication issue game at all. I do think if you try to run the football to keep them honest, which I think you absolutely have to do, because you see what it does to their linebackers getting sucked up. I think there's some opportunities there. I think when they're lined up, everybody's double mugs and we're up in the A gaps. I think the quick throws, the slants, the screens, the bubbles, like you have to be able to take those and make something of them. That stuff's all built in, but those are also some checks you can make at the line of scrimmage. I think the big thing here is just like, don't turn the football over. How do we put ourselves in a situation where I love how Jordan Love can back foot throw those balls into space and the guys can run underneath them. I think you see it all over the tape with the Chicago Bears. So, I'm just trying to look at a game plan, probably heavily based in 11 personnel, where I'm using formations, motions, and shifts to identify early and just get to my first and second options as fast as possible. Question from Reza Ramon. Oh, nice. Why don't coaching staffs employ a model where they bring in technical specialists such as yourself or former great wide receivers to teach the players some of the finer points of the trade? It would be a nice change of pace targeted to investment in player development. This is a very multi-layered question. I think the first thing to say is I think there are some teams that have done that historically. I don't know that many teams do. I'll give you a story that kind of sums this up for me. I'll give you two stories if you want. When I was working in Miami, I know that we had some of our guys going to Charles Bentley's place out in Arizona. Charles Bentley, for those who don't remember, was an all-pro center with the Saints. He got a big free agent contract to go to Cleveland, his hometown. He was an Ohio State kid, and he had a gruesome knee injury, ended up retiring. But he was one of the first guys who was like an O-line, like outside development guy. And I think he was the trailblazer, has his own facility, had it in Cleveland, then he moved out to Arizona. I know him personally, great guy, great leader. Except he's doing a lot with younger players now with the high school and the NIL stuff. But we had a guy out there training with him. And listen, like the question, well, so the punchline here is I was with the offensive line coach talking to the head coach, and he's trying to act like he's not bothered by the fact that their guys are out there working to get better in the offseason without them. But he started immediately kind of putting putting the practice down, right? And there's a real sense of a job security that comes along with any of these NFL jobs. And so obviously when you get in a situation where, you're paid to do a job, and for whatever reason, the people that you're paid to do that job for feel like you're not doing that job. And so therefore they come employ somebody like me, or, they want to get better. And so they want to get a bigger contract. They want to do all these great things. So they go and find outside help. I don't know that a lot of coaches have the temperament to say, like, what, that makes a lot of sense. We're going to utilize that. Maybe there's something that we can learn. Maybe we can collaborate, versus saying, like, becoming very territorial, which I think is just a natural human reaction. There was another situation. I was working for a team. I won't name the team. I was as a consultant, and I came in and I was going to help them with tackling and help them along their offensive line, and really help them game plan for their individual matchups. And after a couple of weeks, the head coach came to me and said, "Hey, listen, I love what you're doing. The reality is I can't give this to my offensive line coach because he'll get his feelings hurt." And, the crazy thing is, you think, we just want to win. And it's like, we've talked about it before. I think that when you think about the timeline that a coach is living under, which is like 40, 50 years of a career, versus the compressed timeline of a player who's thinking, like, great career, 7 years. If I can get to 10, I'm going to be, 3 contracts crazy. The player wants all the information they can get, all the help they can get, because it's compressed. These coaches are not only thinking about the job right now, they're also thinking about the next job, and like, how is that going to affect them, and what relationships are going to help and hurt, and et cetera. So the timeline's different. So they're maybe taking a little bit broader look at this. Whereas I think players, and the reason they come to guys like me, is because, like, they got a contract next year, they want to get paid, or they have a 10-year career and they want to be the absolute best player they can, and that is probably going to require them to do work outside the building. So I think there's a lot of different ways to look at it for the teams that are doing that, and I think that probably puts you in better graces with some of these teams as well. Go Pack Go says, after we stopped having Kraft for our tush push for short yardage, it seems like we run a lot of shotgun in 3rd and 4th down. 1 or 2 yarders are an advantage in doing this, or is our O-line just not strong enough to drive off and push the opposing D-line? So I think we talked about it last week. It's a good question. And you have to remember, when you hear statistics on the television, those statistics 99.9% of the time are the league statistics. They're not Packers statistics. They're not Ravens statistics. And so when you hear something like, there's a 43% success rate on 4th and 1 out of shotgun, and that goes up to like 71% when you're under center. Well, as a fan, or as, a lot of the analytics guys, they'll go, well, why are you not going under center? And I think we can talk about the benefits of going under center. First of all, there's a lot more action that you can do because the back can go anywhere. The quarterback is on the line of scrimmage, so you have to clog the A gap. So you have to put somebody over the center, which you don't necessarily have to do. You could run like a 6-2 if you're in shotgun. So there's a lot of advantages to being under center. But just as a blanket statement, those statistics, and there's not a big sample size, but those statistics are not central to, like, I'm sure the Baltimore Ravens are better on 4th and 1 than the Packers are, regardless if they're under center shotgun. It doesn't matter, because they got Lamar Jackson and Derrick Henry, and they got a really good offensive line. So I do think there's a benefit to going under center, and I don't think that it necessarily changes, like, the need for the offensive lineman to push somebody off the football. But I do think the immediacy of the play when the quarterback is connected to the center versus being in shotgun, whether it's pistol, whether it's offset, there is the play is going to hit a lot faster, or there's going to be a lot more optionality when that back is behind an under center quarterback versus offset. Now we're talking about, is he offset like this? Is he offset like this? Like, there's only so many things that a running back can do from those different positions. Or is he offset, in the pistol? So those things you have to think about when you're setting up and designing your plays. I think for some quarterbacks and some offensive coordinators and play callers, one thing that they really like is that from the quarterback position at a gun, you can get that ball and you can immediately make a decision out to throw a pass without really the chance of it getting batted down as opposed to being under center when that defensive end doesn't have to even take a step and he's already in there throwing them. So I think some of that stuff might have to do with it. But yeah, I'm always, every time we go into a shotgun in like third one, fourth one, was particularly in fourth and short, I am always going like that. I know as a player that never made sense to me. Certainly as somebody who's just watching on the TV now, that is definitely not something I would employ. That's a good question. Josh asks, will the playoffs be where we see more Oliver over Gary, or does that happen next season? Well, if I was a betting man, I would say Rashawn Gary, whenever this season's over, it's going to be his last season in Green Bay. And we can talk about it. There's a bunch of different reasons for that. I don't know what has happened from a production standpoint. There's been multiple questions about his play in, play out effort. He's just never seemed to turn that corner into an elite level pass rusher. He was an elite level run defender. I don't know that I've necessarily seen that as much this year. It reminds me, if I'm being honest, of, this is a soccer reference now, but there was this guy, Kaká, who was a Brazilian player who was one of the best midfielders on the planet. Famous player. And he went to Real Madrid, and in Real Madrid, they had Cristiano Ronaldo. Cristiano Ronaldo was arguably the best or the top 2 player of all time. And there was some injury history with Kaká there, but it just also felt like he couldn't handle that shine. And it feels like a little bit with Micah Parsons, a top 3 defensive player in the National Football League. You got Miles, Max, Micah, in whatever order you want to talk about. And it feels like, and I don't know, I'm showing the tape. It feels like that either the contrast in the effort between the two is so different that we see Rashawn in a different light, or maybe he has somewhat become demotivated because he's not the guy anymore, and Micah's the guy. And Micah doesn't care who's on the field, who he's playing against, who's on his team. Like he's just, there's people in the world. Everyone thinks they're an alpha male until they meet one. They're like, oh, like Micah Parsons is an alpha male. That's what it looks like. And so for whatever reason, I don't think that he'll be back next year. Having said that, I think a couple of those guys played pretty well this week. I don't know that anybody played so well, particularly Oliver. I think he has a little bit of ways to go. I think it'll be next year that you're going to see a lot of them. But I don't think we saw enough of them against the Vikings. And I think he had a couple good speed of power plays and really good effort. But I don't know how many more extra snaps you're going to get because of that. Now, Rashawn Gary, I've been a huge Rashawn Gary fan for the last 3-4 years. I was so thrilled he got paid, even through the injury. I would be shocked if he doesn't show up this postseason. I'd be shocked. I think he's gonna come out and have a play or two that are gonna have a big impact on this football game. I would be shocked if he doesn't. Packers Bears is gonna be absolutely epic. Okay, that's very nice of you to say. Not gonna be epic. Gonna be painful. It's terrible. If Sean Ryan isn't signed in the offseason, do you think Jacob Monk is the answer? Or should they look elsewhere in what you've seen so far? You haven't really seen. Okay, so I pride myself on being able to determine the status of a player within 2 series. But we haven't seen a lot of Jacob Monk. We've seen enough to, like I said, that he's an elite mover. I would be shocked if they don't sign Sean Ryan back. I just think, Sean Ryan's got to be looking at this like, okay, I can play center. I'm good. I'm a good center. I'm on a great football team. And he's not going to be that expensive. And I think if I'm Sean Ryan, I'm looking at this like, let me sign a 3-year deal and let me just have my glow up in the next 2 years. In 2 years from now, let me be a top 5, 6, 7 center, which I honestly think he's 100% capable of. And then let me go out and get paid, whether it's by this team or another. But I just don't see him leaving. If he did leave, I think you'd have to bring in competition for Jacob Monk. I don't think he's in a position right now where you could hand him over the job. Not that he couldn't win he couldn't win the competition, but I think it would be bad business to hand over the job like that. It says here, just turn up. All they got to do. Hope no gale force wind stops multiple JLove tutties. Gets up. Yeah, well. One thing we haven't really talked about is special teams. And we don't like to talk about special teams. It makes us sad like that. But that could be a big factor in this game, whether it's because of the wind and the kicking game between the uprights, the return game or lack of return game, depending on what team you want to talk about. All that stuff factors in. Do we see anything kind of out of the ordinary? The Packers and the Bears. If Ben did something kind of crazy, it's hard now because you can't do the onside kick anymore. But if we saw a fake punt or we saw, something a little bit off or different this game, I would expect it to come from Chicago because I don't think Ben's the kind of coach that is going to be like, we're the number 2 seed. You got to come beat us. I think he's the kind of coach who's like, we're going to show you whatever it takes to win. And I think Matt LaFleur has been with his special teams, and honestly, rightfully so. And again, we've talked about like how much time they get to practice, how many resources they put into it. Obviously, they have Versace, but like, if you get all walkthroughs or not long meeting times, you don't know why they're not very good. They just have never really been good. And our one bright spot in Keyshawn Nixon, like he just stopped doing it. As soon as he stopped doing it, it was like nothing to talk about again. But I think Matt LaFleur, and rightfully so, just based on how he wants to run his operation, has always kind of been it feels like he's always kind of been with special teams like, don't lose us the game. You know what I mean? Don't lose the game. Like we feel like we're going to win the game on offense. We're going to win the game on defense. Don't lose us the game on special teams. That's all you got to do. Right? Just be sound. We don't care if we don't return the football, make your kicks, punt the ball where we want to punt it, catch the onsides, but don't lose us the game. So I think if you saw anything, you might see from the Bears side. And then I think the last thing I just want to end with is some keys to this game, and I haven't really had a good thought about it, but I do think the double teams, I think the run game for Chicago, their ability to move us off of the football and give their running backs downhill runs to hammer in Evan Williams and Coop and Quay Walker, their ability to turn the to reset the line of scrimmage, and then by that put the linebackers kind of on their heels when they go into contact, and then get another 3, 4, 5 yards after contact, has been something that we've shown on tape every single game that they've played over the last month. Talking about the Packers defense now, having an answer for that, whether it's run stunts, moving sideways, whether it's learning how to attack the doubles by turning it into a single block and how you do that is like guard tackle. If they're trying to double, you try to attack the tackle or the guard. You don't just try to double one of them. Some guys in the league do that really well. You watch like Byron Murphy Jr. for the second for Seattle, like the way he attacks a double and can actually stop both guys, drop his hip, etc. is special. Not everybody can do that. Our guys aren't particularly good at it. I think that's a huge key to the game. Obviously, the turnover battle is going to be a huge key to the game. But I really do think when we talk about the offense, and it was a little bit about building that game plan, I do think this game really comes down to Matt LaFleur is just going to Jordan Love like, hey, I'm going to put you in a situation where you're going to understand what the defense is pre-snap. I want you to just rip it. We've done we got to run the football. We've done all that, and I hope I'm wrong because I love running the football. But I do think there's going to be just so many times, even in the plays that didn't work against Chicago, whether it's the Lions game, whether it's either the Packers games, there are players wide ass open because they have some communication issues. They are ball hawks. They do a great job of pattern recognition, but you see when they motion in particular, run fits, passing leverage, it really gets out of whack. I think we're going to be in a position to make a lot of plays there. And if those two things happen, and again, no turnovers or winning the turnover battle, I think this is a big win for Green Bay, and hopefully that means they're heading to Seattle for what could be a monster game up in Lumen Field. So, guys, that's it for the show. That's a wrap. Hopefully it's not the last show of the year. If you're enjoying these breakdowns, please hit us up on our Process to Perform channel or the Pack a Day podcast. Like, subscribe, share with your friends. get those comments, keeping it going, guys. Thanks for listening to questions. It's been a lot of fun, kind of going back and forth with people. I'm here to inform and educate. I'm just an old head who likes talking ball. So I hope you're enjoying it. Hit me up whenever you can. Mike Wahle 68 on Twitter, Process to Perform Instagram games. Thanks for watching. Have a good week.